Welcome to the Etsy Conversations podcast, featuring inspiring interviews with Etsy shop owners, hosted by Ijama Elazu.
Hi, and welcome to the Etsy Conversations podcast. I am your host, Ijama, and I thank you for joining me for another episode. This week, my very special guest is Trissha Taylor of TrishaTaylorCreative.com, and that's the home where she teaches contagious creativity for inspired entrepreneurs. I found Trisha through YouTube. I think it was like 2 or 3 years ago now. And you probably guessed by now, because I always stumble on people on YouTube, and I talk about it here. But I found Trisha, and she was sharing such good information for Etsy sellers about just how to be better sellers on Etsy. And I've been following her ever since. So I'm really thrilled to have this conversation with Trisha and to introduce her to you. So Trisha, thank you so much for being my guest and welcome to the podcast.
Hello, Ijoma. Thank you as well for having me. Such an honor.
Oh, thanks. So before we get into it, can I just have you give a little introduction about who you are for anyone who doesn't know you yet?
Absolutely. So I'm a designer and developer, web and graphic by trade. And who am I? I guess right now I am a content creator. So I do have a YouTube channel, just as you said, Ijoma. And I also create online courses to help established and budding entrepreneurs start and grow their online businesses. Now, my main focus is Etsy. However, I am gradually branching out into teaching entrepreneurs how to develop their businesses on their own platforms and take a little bit more control over the businesses that they're running.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And you do that so well too. I took one of your courses, which we're going to talk about, and your style was so engaging and informative. So I'm glad that you're branching out outside of Etsy, which is something I always preach on the podcast, that, you know, Etsy is a great platform to start off with, and it's a tool in your toolbox, and the world is so much bigger.
Absolutely.
And I will link to Trisha's YouTube channel for anyone who wants to go check out what she's doing on YouTube and just get more acquainted with Trisha. Mm-hmm. So let's start with Trissha Taylor Creative. How did it come about, and what's the main goal of TTC?
Oh my goodness, TTC.
I took the liberty. I hope you don't mind.
Oh, I love it. I do it sometimes as well. So this is great. And it's so funny because TTC in Toronto is actually Toronto Transit Commission. So we call the transit. Anyways, Trissha Taylor Creative, TTC. Trissha Taylor Creative is an online platform that I created with lots and lots of courses. And my teaching style is that I want you to walk away with the ability to know exactly what you need to do to start a specific business. I found that there are so many courses online that give you very generic or basic information, and they're usually taught by people who haven't actually done it, like gone in there and actually done it and have been able to say, hey, listen, I sold this product, I marketed it this way, and here's my results. There aren't a lot of instructors that sell and actively teach what they sell in that way. And so my approach to online learning is I want you to get the basic information, actually probably not the basic, more than the basic information. I want you to understand the platform that you're selling. And then I also want you to understand the market that you're selling to and how to sell that specific product. For instance, I have a course that teaches you how to create a custom mug business on Etsy, or a printable quotes business on Etsy, or an SVG business. I have one that I'm really excited about. I actually launched it a week ago. It's called the Ultimate Wedding Business Course, and it teaches you everything you need to know about the wedding market on Etsy. And what I do is I teach you how to make the products. I show you what the market says about Etsy and how to read a specific category and how to identify what products you're going to create and use in your Etsy shop. And then, of course, I get into the nitty gritty of running of running your business on Etsy. So I got into this kind of by accident, actually. I started my YouTube channel and I realized that people had so many questions and they were so engaged with the content and the honesty that it possessed that I decided that, Trissha Taylor Creative was going to be a platform where people can purchase affordable courses that actually teach you how to do something. And so that's how I kind of got into it, and I love it. And I love all the people that I am able to connect with, and I love engaging with my students and my audience. And I love telling the truth. And I think you mentioned it earlier, it's so important for people to really understand what they're getting into, understand their businesses in such a way that they're able to independently run their companies and grow their businesses.
Yeah. One of the things I like that you do is you don't just look at Etsy from the outside and then postulate and say, okay, go and try this. You actually have done these or try these things out yourself on Etsy. Like, you've been on Etsy, you understand how it works. And so you're coming not just from an outside perspective, but as a seller, somebody who understands the marketplace. And I'm thinking right now that someone who is listening to this might think, well, I already sell, this particular product, or I make this particular product, even though I know that there's someone listening who hasn't yet opened up their Etsy shop, because sometimes I'll hear from people saying, I want to start an Etsy store. I just haven't decided what to do yet. So for that person, it's great to look at the courses that you offer, because then they'll get ideas about what does sell well on Etsy, and then not just get the idea, but also get instructions on how to go about opening that particular type of Etsy store. But for someone who is already selling on Etsy, one of the things I like is, and I had a conversation with someone else on the podcast about this, who was a maker and selling what she makes already, but then decided to, and it was because people, I guess, asked about how to make something, decided to start selling downloadable directions on how to make what she makes. And that just blew up. And so she never stopped actually making them, but then people who were DIYers and wanted to do the same were able to have a product from her that appealed to them, because then they could make their own, not to sell per se, but they wanted to learn how to make different designs. And so some of the courses you teach are helpful in that they can help people who want to branch out into that type of arena, like maybe creating instructional, is instructional the right word, like tutorials on how to do things that opens them up to a different market. Does that make sense, what I just said?
Yes, that makes perfect sense. I think there are a lot of people out there that know how to do things. And the fact that Etsy has opened its marketplace up to digital products is amazing. It's amazing for us because, yes, Etsy does have a huge reach in terms of the people that come in and out of their marketplace. And if you can capture them by way of a product that you sell, or by way of a printable, downloadable digital product that you sell as well, you are going to be at an advantage. And ultimately what we want is the sale. And you never really know how well the item that you're selling will go, or will be, or will do rather, unless you try it. And unless you take that risk and you just say, okay, you know what, this is my niche. This is what I understand. Let me put together a printable good and let's see if it sells, and if it's and if it's successful, just like your just like your guest on your podcast, if it becomes successful, then you have something. And I think the beautiful thing about digital products on Etsy is that you're selling something that is ultimately, you're creating passive income rather. Is that a better way to say it?
Yeah.
You're creating passive income. The work, all of the grunt work is creating the product, uploading the product, setting up your listing, setting up your social media a little bit, and that is it. And if you can create a machine that's able to give you $2,000 or $3,000 a month, you've just created a business ultimately, right? And you have just done something that most people can't. And I'm going to just touch on something else. Mm-hmm. I say this to my students all the time. And so I remember, and a lot, my audience, if you follow me, you know how I am. I'm the kind of person that goes onto the Etsy market and researches what's trending. I'm always, every week, I know what's trending. I know what's popular. I already know what's emerging for the end of this year. I already know who's going to be a top contender on Etsy because I watch the marketplace. I watch the sales. I pay attention to all of this stuff. And what I like to do is I like to go in there, test it out, make sure it actually works. And then I like to teach it. Okay. And I think what people forget or what people don't know about Etsy is that 80% of Etsy sellers are making less than $300 a month. And that's huge. And that's regardless of their ads that they invest in on Etsy, regardless of the amount of time that they put into their goods, regardless of how amazing their products might be. I think we have to pay attention to that fact because when we think about the 80-20 rule, well, my objective is to flip that upside down so that you have that 20% advantage as a student or as somebody who follows me in my work. I think that we all have the ability to grow our businesses to make up for that because believe me, there are people who are making $30,000 and $40,000 a month on Etsy. And then there are people who are making next to nothing. And it is absolutely a labor of love. Now, I'd love to marry both those worlds to something that you love doing that is extremely profitable. And then bam, you have a profitable business that operates functionally on Etsy and that can be branched off onto other platforms. I recently started a course. Actually, I released a course, and it's called Etsy's Top 100. And what I've done is I've analyzed the top 100 shops on Etsy. And the reason why I did this is because I think we spend so much time on my channel talking about shops that aren't doing so well or that are trying to, but we never really talk about the ones that are just killing it, right? What I found was that a majority of these shops, number one, yes, they are the top 20% on Etsy. A lot of them are selling items that have low competition. There's kind of a number that you want to stay under when you're selecting keywords. And a lot of people don't know this. Those people on that top 100 list do, right? And it's not just supply shops, not just jewelry shops. There are people who understand what they need to sell, how they need to sell it. They understand the market and they know what's popular. The idea is to figure out how to get to that top 20% so that this is no longer your hobby. It becomes your business.
So I was taking a look at that, the Etsy's top 100 sellers. So what, based on your analysis that you put together in that report, will somebody come away knowing, one, how to do their own keyword research, and then being able to then decipher whether or not what they're doing in their Etsy shop is going to be viable? And if not, will they then be able to make decisions that can help them steer the ship in a different direction and maybe come up with a new product line to sell?
That's an excellent question. So I'm going to start by saying something that's going to be a little controversial, but I'm going to say it anyway. I challenge everyone to think outside of the box. Okay. And I'm going to challenge your audience to do the same. What I discovered in my course that I created, and I have a short version that's on Udemy and I have a longer version that's on my site. But even, regardless of what you're looking at, there are exceptions to every rule. And that top 100 list, those top 20% on Etsy, those sellers are the exception. In many ways, they are not the rule. Okay. So there are certain things that they can get away with doing and still make a lot of money that new sellers cannot, unless they're positioning their brand to be exactly like theirs. What I want people to take away from that course is I would love for my students in that particular course to kind of look at what it is that they're selling. I want you to pay attention to the presentation of that shop. I want you to pay attention to the items. I would say out of the 100 shops that I reviewed, zero, absolutely none of them infringed on copyright. I think there's one that was borderline, one out of 100. The rest of them didn't even have anything remotely close to Disney. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
They did the right things, but they did the kind of things that people don't think about, right? So there's one shop that I have in mind that was a t-shirt shop, and I'm not going to name them, but they had 200 t-shirts. They opened in 2016, and I completed my review on them for the course in December of 2017. So they've been on Etsy for roughly about a year. And I believe that their sales were over 300,000 in 1 year. In 1 year. And
okay,
yeah,
sorry, go. And this is like a regular shop. It's not, they're not doing anything borderline sketchy, if you know what I mean.
Absolutely. They're not doing anything borderline sketchy. They're not infringing on anyone's copyright. They have their own name, their own branding. They didn't even have an Etsy banner. And I'm just pulling them up right now, and I'm looking at them right now. And so right now they have 352,000 sales. And they sell t-shirts. They sell t-shirts. And I won't be specific, but the t-shirts that they sell are very basic. They have 3 colors. They have 228 items listed in their shop. They have 113,000 admirers, and that is it. That's all they've done. And they've been able to kind of position themselves with their t-shirts, with their branding. I've noticed that they are very active on Pinterest. So I believe that they're really leveraging that medium. They're also very active on Facebook, and that has been able to help them. But I chose this shop as an example because that's the most basic, generic idea you can have for a business, a t-shirt business. When you ask someone to start a t-shirt business, the first thing they tell you is, well, everybody else has a t-shirt business. What am I going to do? You know, here's the thing. Try it, right? So a year ago, they didn't have this much sales. I mean, their t-shirts are about $15. They sold over 300,000. You do the math. They didn't have that much money a year ago, and they tried it, right? And with all these different companies that can actually produce the t-shirts and ship it to your customers, I think it's called blind shipping. You know, you can actually run a business without the inventory and without that added investment. And that's what I teach my students. I teach my students to start with a budget of 0. When you start with that budget of 0, you think more clearly because you think, okay, I'm going to have to figure out how to do my own logo. Bing, Trisha can teach me that, right? I'm going to have to figure out how to set up my Etsy shop. Bing, Trisha can teach me that. Or in fact, I can Google and find out so many tutorials that can help me start an Etsy shop. Just literally set it up, physically set it up. That information is out there and it's readily available. I think what separates shops like these from other shops is that, they've positioned themselves really well. They found a market, they found a niche, and they focused in on that. Because ultimately, there are 2 kinds of shops that are super successful. And I'm leaving out the jewelry supply shops because their business model is self-explanatory and they have insane amounts of inventory, and it takes a huge investment to start up a jewelry supply shop. And yes, we know for the most part, they do tend to dominate Etsy. Okay. Yeah. So if we leave those shops out of the mix and out of our consideration, well, what kinds of shops are super successful? The really, really big shops and the shops that have a niche and that have a niche that is focused. My mind is running on another shop and I cannot think of their name, but they were in that top 100 list. And they sold t-shirts for pet lovers. And I think the last time I saw their shop, they had around 50,000 sales in 1 year. And that's their focus. They sold t-shirts for pet lovers and tanks for pet lovers. Find your niche and don't just have a niche. Work your niche and research your niche. And don't just research your niche on Etsy. I would recommend you researching your niche on places like Amazon, right? Amazon is huge. Most people in North America shop on Amazon. Why? Because they like them and because they trust them. So if you look at what's popular on Amazon, now I wouldn't bet my life on it, but I definitely would bet my last dollar that it will also be popular on Etsy. And that's some free advice right there because I did, because I did do the research. I said, okay, let me see what's going on with this. Let me see if it's on Amazon as well. And then boom, I found them on Amazon. And what I will also add is that of the 100 shops that I reviewed, I calculated about 78% of them had their own website that was not patterned by Etsy, that was their own separate entity under their own domain, and that is how they marketed. And I would say around 98% of the shops that I've reviewed have their own Pinterest accounts, and they have pinned products from their shop, and of course customers have pinned their items, so they are active on Pinterest, whether that might be by accident or whether that was intentional. They're there, and they have a strong presence on Facebook and Instagram. Those are the staples for a successful shop. So I challenge you I challenge anyone that's thinking about starting a shop and actually getting it to the next level. Why don't you look at the things that no one else is looking at? Because a lot of the shops that I looked at had pretty simple and pretty basic shop titles. They had pretty basic descriptions. I would say 90% of them had horrible descriptions. They did things that I wouldn't even recommend my students doing, but they got away with it because they are, as I mentioned before, the exception and not the rule. Now, another thing that, and I've been very open about this in all of my courses, especially the wedding one, is that it's really important to build a community around your brand. What that means to you and how you're going to do that is something that you probably want to buy a course from me about. But ultimately, if you have a strategy in mind that will cultivate a brand around your products, I would recommend that you go ahead and do that, because that is what's going to sell. You want your customers to come to Etsy because they love Etsy and trust Etsy. And then come to you because they've gotten to know you, loved you, trust you enough to follow you on Facebook, on Instagram, on your email list, and ultimately on your own website.
Trisha, you've given me like 100 more questions to ask just based on everything you've said. And I don't know that we have enough time, but I'm going to get everything out of you. So, okay, somebody is listening to what you just said now, and they're flailing on Etsy. What do you recommend? Do you think one should just dump what's not working, or can there be salvation in something that is struggling for life support?
You know, that is an excellent question. And I think you're alluding to the fact that we did talk about the fact that most Etsy sellers are not really making money.
Right.
So, you know what, if you know, and this takes a lot of humility and some honesty. So, you know, I always recommend to my students, stand in the mirror and talk about your business. Are you proud of it? When you talk about your business, are you proud of it? When you talk about the results, can you actually put it together in a business plan and say, okay, this is good. This is a business. Or is this a hobby? Which one is it? Once you make that decision and once you decide what your business is, and according to your goals and your objectives, if you haven't really figured it out and if you feel like it's not there, then it's not there. And I can't be the judge of that for anyone. You have to know, like, if you're just trying to make something that will give you $500 a month and you're kind of doing 600 and 400, and you're happy with that, then I want you to stay happy with that. Now, if you want more, then it's going to take some honest conversation. And the first thing you want to do, and what I find, because I do a lot of Etsy shop reviews now, and I'm trying to stay away from them now because I think it's time for people to actually get out there and do the things they know they should be doing.
Okay.
First of all, you really have to take an honest look at your shop. Do you have an Etsy banner? Does your Etsy banner look good? Or does it look like something that, you know, some teenager put together for you in Photoshop, sort of, not really, and it's just kind of, you know, no, that's not acceptable. You have to have a great Etsy banner. These are the staples of a great Etsy shop. Okay. What we want to do is we want to make sure that first impression, that first, you know, your Etsy shop and your banner is your landing page. We want to make sure that your customers are engaged and they know what you're about and they're interested the moment they land on your shop's page. So ask yourself, is there room for improvement with my branding? If there is, make it happen. Have you completed a shop profile? You know, the about section in your Etsy shop? Have you completed that? See, I can tell you right now, and this is coming from Etsy, they've released a statement, I think back in 2015, stating that if you haven't completed a shop profile, they will reduce the amount of traffic that comes to your shop.
Yes,
hands down.
That's correct. I read that.
Yeah, absolutely. And they have said that. They've also mentioned something about having photos. So as you scroll down, you'll see an about section in your shop as well, which is linked into your profile. But you can also add photos and videos. Etsy said that they'll be giving advantages to people who upload videos and photos in that area. Have you done that? So the question is, if you're failing, you have to ask yourself, am I doing everything that I'm supposed to be doing according to Etsy standards? Not according to anyone else and not according to someone you saw on a blog or something. I'm talking about going right to the source and checking off all of the dots. Have you done that? Have you crossed your T's and dotted your I's? And then let's talk about photography. So are my products clear? Do my customers know exactly what they're purchasing? Or does my products and my items and my overall shop's presentation in terms of photography, does it look like it's all rushed and scattered? Because you can tell, and I firmly believe this, especially for those of us who shop or sell on Etsy consistently, you can look at a shop and tell if this person is here to stay or if they're just throwing something together to make a little money.
Yeah.
You can tell the difference between a good quality shop. Agreed?
Yes, true.
Right. So you have to ask yourself, am I, and this is, it takes some confidence and some humility, but if your shop does not look good, then you need to not delete everything because, oh my goodness, you paid for those listings now.
Yeah.
But we have to go back in and make those necessary changes. Okay. What does your description look like? Is it describing your items properly? Are you adding keywords in your materials?
Yes.
Are you adding keywords? Are you adding the right keywords? What is the keyword volume that you're using for your keywords? Are you just throwing keywords in there, or are you actually thinking about the number of people that will actually type the keyword that you entered in order to find your item? Are you using long tail or short tail keywords? Have you done homework on that? Because if you haven't, then there's that disconnect again. Right? And then we talk about shipping. So I'm a Canadian and I'm in the beautifully cold country of Canada for the most part. And we do not have the advantage of having great shipping like in America. We really don't. We spend, I just sent a couple pieces of paper to another province and it cost me $40 something. This is a couple pieces of papers. Okay. And Americans, on the other hand, are used to very affordable shipping, right?
Yes.
So if you are not in America, and I've even seen some American sellers that have sold items with crazy shipping prices. Let's bring it down a little bit. Are you trying to make money on your shipping, or are you trying to ship the goods to your customers? You can add maybe $2 or $3 for handling, but you should not be trying to leverage shipping fees because customers know. Most customers understand that if they're getting something overseas, they're going to have to spend a little bit more on the shipping costs. But if you are dealing with someone in America, Americans are spoiled in that sense. They like their affordable shipping, right?
Or free.
Or free shipping. Yeah. If you can offer free shipping, you are good to go. Okay. Yeah. Now, also, have you leveraged marketing on Etsy? And I'm going to be very careful when I say this because I have very controversial views on that as well. But I think one of the greatest marketing tools that are available on Etsy happens to be running sales, okay, and running free shipping sales. And now that Etsy allows us to hand out coupons or to run a sale in your entire shop, well, when things are slow, I want you to look at your cost, look at what you can leverage in terms of running a discount, even if it means you raise the prices of all your items by 20%, just so you can offer a coupon for 20%. You do that, right? There's all, as long as you have the will and the mindset and a good product to sell, there's always a way, right? Now, I would say to my customers, give yourself about 3 months. And if you are not making more than $500 in 3 months of selling, and this also depends on what you're selling, how you're selling it, and how many items you have listed in your shop, okay? So you need to set your own goals based on your business, and all businesses are unique, so I can't be very, very specific. But give yourself about 3 months, and if you are not profitable by then, it's time to look at other alternatives to selling, like or other products that you can sell. And then another note that I want to add, I'm sorry, I know we're being mindful of time.
No,
you want
go on.
Oh, sorry?
I said no, go on.
Oh, okay, thank you. You want to take a look at the item that you're selling. Okay, and I know it sounds really crazy, but I have seen everything from slippers made from maxi pads to, oh my God, I have seen some crazy stuff on Etsy. Okay. And I'm not saying that what you're selling is crazy, but you have to make sure that there is the right amount of demand for the product that you're selling. Yeah. And that, just because you like it doesn't mean that most people will like it. And again, that goes back to the first question I asked you guys to think about. Is this a business or is this a hobby? If it's a hobby, then sell what you want. Do what you want because it's not that serious. But if this is a business and you have a goal that you want to meet, then you have to sit down and say, okay, how am I going to get here? And is what I'm selling good enough? Or do I need to increase the number of products in my shop? Or do I need to change the item that I'm selling? And sometimes the best way to identify that is to look at other shops and not to copy them. We don't copy, but we look for inspiration. So if we see, I'm thinking of someone and I'm about to release a course about how to sell like her because she's one of 5 people who are selling what I'm thinking of. And what she did was she kind of looked at what people were doing online on Etsy, and she kind of tweaked it to make it her own. And she really put her own touch on it. And she made it to number 12, I think 10 or 12 on my list of top 100 shops for 2017. And what she did was she found a niche and she carved a place out for herself in that niche. And what she's selling is great. And there's this huge demand and there isn't a lot of competition. That's what you're looking for. You're looking for markets or segments of a market that you can create your own, you can carve out your own little seat and have a seat. If that makes any sense.
It makes perfect sense. So then I'm thinking somebody is saying, okay, well, how do I do that? How do I research the market and find a niche that isn't already saturated, that other people haven't flooded?
Well, you could take my course.
Well, which course, Trisha?
Which course? Okay, so I have a course called Etsy's Top 100, and it's on Trissha Taylor. It's on my website,
so that one, okay, where you analyze the top 1% of shops.
Exactly, the top 100 shops on Etsy.
Oh, now, so you also talk about how to do research for niches?
Exactly.
Okay, good to know. Yeah.
Exactly. And what I teach you how to do is how to just identify the shop's strengths and the weaknesses. And I also want you to see the pattern, because there is a pattern with successful shops. It's almost like they read the same manual. Now, how do you do the research on your own? You need to sit down and you need to watch the market, watch what's trending, watch what Etsy is promoting. You need to pay attention to that first page on Etsy, not the stuff that Etsy retargets you with, you were just looking at this last week. Why don't you check it out again? No, you want to look at what is Etsy featuring? What's Etsy featuring on their Instagram accounts, right? Remember, as much as we know, there are people who make decisions on Etsy as to, how things are presented, right?
Yeah.
And there are also people who, and there's also people who have to write the algorithms for Etsy. So ultimately, when you are a seller, you want to think like someone who owns Etsy. What would you promote more, right? Or what shops would you promote more? Because I promise you, someone in their marketing department sits down and writes out the algorithms based on the data, based on the responses. Ultimately, shops with positive reviews over time have an advantage. Older shops definitely have an advantage. It doesn't mean everything, but it is important enough to note. And you also want to look at websites. So there are a lot of indexing websites that have the ranking data and the trending data on Etsy. You have to visit each of these shops and figure out what they're selling and figure out how you can sell something similar, or figure out how you can, if it's a particular, I can't think of anything right now, but if you can think of applying a strategy that another shop that is more successful than you is applying into your own shop, that could be a huge turning factor for you in your own business. Research is what it is. It is research. It is writing down. I literally have a book that I write down data, shop information. If I see a trend showing up on Etsy consistently, for instance, over the past maybe 10 weeks, there was a huge trend with Instant Pot decals, right? Sorry, I'm just going to grab a drink. I'm sorry, my throat's dry.
Okay, no problem. And when you say Instant Pot, you mean like the pressure cooker?
Yes.
Whoa. Okay.
So Instant Pots became super popular around Christmas time and just before Christmas time in general, right?
Yeah.
So what people were starting to look at is, well, I can put a decal on my Instant Pot. Let's do this, right?
Yeah.
And then I think it started to blow up with the Facebook groups because people were showing all these great meals that they were creating, right?
Yeah.
Again, this is where you have to keep your eyes open, right? And then Instant Pot became popular. And I'm kind of thinking, well, my grandma had one of these pots. It just wasn't called an Instant Pot. Like, I don't get it. And these are things like whenever there's a trend, there are corresponding products that will trend with it. And so decals became that corresponding product. And if you search on Etsy right now, you'll see a lot of shops that opened up in the last little while that are selling Instant Pot decals. When you look at their sales, you'll see a huge increase of sales. Even if you look at their reviews, if their sales are hidden, you can see that a lot of their reviews are coming from that Instant Pot trend, that wave that's kind of sweeping by. And now how popular is it? I haven't pulled up the data yet, but I will be at some point. But I would imagine that it's still something that is popular. So that's what I mean. I mean, keeping your eyes open, paying attention to Pinterest, paying attention to shops that are kind of, on that first 3 pages of Etsy search results, because that's going to help. And paying attention to the shops that are running Google ads, because those tend to be shops that are running shops that are running Google ads on a consistent basis, because those tend to be the shops that are leveraging Etsy in a good way and still making back their money in their return.
Okay. One of the things that you did touch on briefly was social media. Now, I think you've done a great job with YouTube and just creating a community using YouTube. For sellers in general, I think we've come to the conclusion that it's good to pick one social media platform and just get really good at that particular one. Is there anyone in particular that you would recommend for sellers? And I know everyone's business is different, so this is strictly just what your opinion is regarding social media. What one platform would you say a seller should try and master to use to help market their products and their shop?
Okay, I'm going to give you a very complicated answer again. I'm so sorry. Okay, guys, it's so important for you to understand that leveraging all of these platforms in a way that makes sense for you will be to your benefit. Okay. If you can get yourself on YouTube, I can almost guarantee that if you can get a decent audience, and when I say decent, I mean at least 1,000 people, real people.
Are there not real people on YouTube?
Sorry?
Are there not real people on YouTube?
The trend for many people is to buy followers. And while it might be popular, it is always best. Like, I have a smaller community, but I can honestly say, and I'm proudly saying, that all of my followers on YouTube are real. My subscribers on YouTube are real.
Okay.
And it's so important to not to get swayed by, buying subscribers, because we want real people who really care about our brands to engage in our content. And if you have the kind of business that you can present something on your YouTube channel, it's great because it helps you to take up real estate on the web. And if you're willing to take the time and you register for all of the social media accounts, what should happen is when someone types in your business name, this is what should happen. They should see your website, all your social media pages, so that includes your Pinterest, your Twitter, and so forth. Even if you merge all of that into a program like Hootsuite, where you kind of have the same content on all different platforms, you must have that there, because that's how people kind of lose their business, or they lose the legitimacy of their business, because most people are going to Google you if they like you, or if they are trying to decide if they want to buy from you. So they're looking for more information about you. Yeah. So I personally think that it's important to be on all the platforms, because there's so many different things that you can do. With your YouTube channel, you can link in your YouTube channel to your business, your own business, as in your, Trisha Taylor, Trisha Taylor lamps, right? That's what I'm selling on Etsy. I can have TrishaTaylorLamps.com, and I can connect that Trisha Taylor lamps to my YouTube content that I share with my audience. And I could use my products to build my audience. And I could kind of migrate my audience on Etsy onto my YouTube channel and not just my personal web page. Now, you should also pay attention to places like Instagram. Instagram's amazing. Instagram now has new features where you can actually link in and have customers shop from Instagram. There's so much that you can do in terms of leveraging sales and leveraging products and items. And I really want to see more people take advantage of Instagram and Facebook, because Facebook ads are golden. This is the gold rush for Facebook ads. And if you do it right, you can get the money that you want. You can get the business that you want as long as you're selling the right products and you are able to target that product well. And then let's not forget, we talk a lot about social media, but let's not neglect the fact that having an email list and using your customers from Etsy to leverage and create an email list is also important, because these are people who've purchased from you, who probably had a positive experience with you, and who are probably more than likely going to be more qualified and inclined to make a purchase on your personal website. So what else wouldn't you want, or why wouldn't you want them on your email list, right?
Yeah.
So you really have to figure out a way to leverage all of these platforms, because they each have their strengths and they each can do so much. So most of the successful entrepreneurs that I know, they don't tweet every day, they don't post every day, but they post every week. So it's not about the quantity of their posts, it's about the quality of their posts. Because at the end of the day, as I mentioned before, social media is about engagement and relationship. And we have to be present on all these platforms if we want to build those relationships. And yes, it takes lots and lots of time. But when you get those customers that are like, I'm tagging your business because I had an amazing experience, it is worth its weight in gold.
Okay. Wow. All right. So that just is a whole other, like a whole new can of worms that, and I don't mean that in a bad way, but yes, it makes sense that we want to connect and I forgot what the engage with the people that we follow. And I think one of the things that you mentioned, which I didn't bring up, was mailing lists. So important, because having people's email addresses, I view as them giving you permission to connect with them. Social media, in one way, I think of it like with social media, if someone follows you, they're not saying you can reach out to me. They're observing you from a distance. So if you show up in their feed, they see what you're doing. But with email, that's like saying, yeah, reach out to me, connect with me, send me a message. And it's a lot more personal. And I don't know if all sellers have really grasped how important it is to get people's emails. And now Etsy does allow you to collect email addresses. You can put a link to your newsletter sign up in your Etsy shop. And if you're not doing that already, pause this and go and do it right now.
Absolutely.
So, what are some of the common mistakes that you tend to see Etsy sellers or creative business owners in general making when it just comes to either running their business or in particular their Etsy shops? What are some things that are really easy to fix, but you see people not doing it the right way?
Absolutely. I would say it would be the marketing. So I think we touched on it, the social media, the engagement, and the quality of the content that they're sharing, right? It's good to take photos of the items you sell, but also let's find other images and other ways to engage your audience without selling to them, right? What we want to do is we want to get into the subconscious selling, not the conscious selling, right? We want to have a nice balance. I also think that the positioning of how they position their products on Etsy and on their personal website is important. And I think it's often overlooked. And we touched on that earlier as well. Sometimes they take the worst kind of photos that they could, or their mock-ups aren't good quality. I would also say infringements are another huge mistake. And I get a lot of people asking me to help them with their shop, and it's filled with Disney stuff, and they're wondering why they have 2 DMCA takedowns, right?
Yeah.
So, guys, if it's not your idea, if it's not your product, and if you invented Mickey Mouse, you get off of Etsy, get yourself a lawyer, go sue them. Okay. But in most cases, and I'm probably 100% sure you didn't invent Mickey Mouse, so you shouldn't be selling products that are in relation to that. And you shouldn't try to get on trends with movies, because again, a lot of these movies, a lot of these production companies are aware of the fact that people are online infringing on their copyright, and they're becoming more savvy to Etsy and its sellers. So in other words, let's try to focus on the things that we own and that we have control over and that are ours. Another mistake, I think, and I'm going to be a little controversial again, that people make is that they send out fake DMCAs to their competitors, or they bully their competitors into taking things down with their DMCAs that they register, or they, let's try to remember that Etsy was created as a community, and Etsy grew because of the community that is wrapped around its brand. And you can, trust me, you can get more bees with honey than you can with vinegar. And I think we have a few, not a lot, of sellers on Etsy that are creating a horrible experience for other sellers as a way to discourage them. I think that's a huge mistake. And I'm thinking of one person in mind, actually 3 people in mind, who've taken that route, and they've lost their entire business because of it. And they had amazing businesses that were making a lot of money. I think one was in my top 10 list in 2015, and her shop is gone because of the things that she was doing to other sellers. So let's try to keep that marketplace really positive. And I'm really glad you asked that question, because I really wanted an opportunity to touch on that. The friends that you can make on Etsy are amazing. And the people that I know from Etsy are amazing people. And I'm so grateful, because it's motivating, right? Even if you're in the same market, never forget that there is enough for everyone, right?
Yes.
These customers are not always loyal to just us. They will buy from someone who has products similar to yours. And it doesn't mean that they love you any less, right? So there's enough for everyone.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Another thing that I noticed that people do wrong, probably the products. I think products are huge. They don't do the research on the item that they're trying to sell. And they forget that, just because you're selling doesn't mean someone will sell it, or someone will buy it, or they forget that just because you like it doesn't mean that other people will too. So definitely do your homework on the item that you're selling. And you can do that by doing your research on Etsy, doing your research on Amazon. And yes, it's a different market, but remember, we are talking about numbers, we're talking about engagements, and we're talking about your ability to sell it and position it in your own way. So definitely look at other marketplaces on the web and on Pinterest to find out if there's any interest. And remember, this is all about data, and Etsy, and much like other marketplaces, I want to end this with saying that, my last thing would be, always remember that it's a numbers game. And that's why I said, much like all marketplaces are, everything is relative to the numbers. So try to think like a mathematician and a marketer at the same time. It's not always the easiest thing to do, but try to think outside of the box in order to better understand how the marketplace you're trying to leverage upon really works.
Okay. I like all what you said, and thank you for the reminder about Etsy, what the Etsy community was founded on. One of the questions I like to ask guests is if they have an Etsy shop shout out, because I think it's just a nice way to give back to someone in the Etsy community. So many times I will ask sellers if there's anyone in the community that has helped them, or a particular shop that they enjoy buying from, or whose products they really like and want to support. And hardly ever does anyone not have someone who within the community has helped them. And I know some people will even say that they will reach out to other people who are in a similar niche to theirs and ask questions. And 8 to 9 times out of 10, they will always get a positive response. And maybe the 1 or 2 times out of 10, they don't get a response. But I don't recall anyone ever saying that they've gotten a nasty or negative response from someone who they've reached out to in the community to ask for help. So either a good response or no response. And I do think that's one thing that sets the Etsy marketplace apart from other similar online marketplaces. Now,
Absolutely.
Trisha, for anyone who goes to Trissha Taylor Creative, and I want to say this, if someone wants to type it in right away and go there, I'm going to have links to it, but it's Trisha, TrisshaTaylor Creative, CreaTive.com. So there are 2 S's in Trisha. For anyone who goes there, you have a plethora of courses. Now, which ones would you say are the most popular or good starter courses for someone who just wants to get their feet wet and test the waters?
Absolutely. What a great question. So I have a course coming up, and I'm just about to release it. I'm about to release it tomorrow, so it looks like it will be ready by the time this podcast is aired. But I have one that I'm calling the social media marketing course. Sorry, the ultimate social media marketing course. And so I created it as a combination. So it'll have about 30 mini courses that will focus on Pinterest, Facebook, all the social media platforms, and not just how to use them as a marketing tool, but also just how to run ads on these platforms and how to grow your business, whether it's on Etsy or off of Etsy, using these platforms. So I have that, and that is going to be my newest course. And I'm super excited about that because I think that's where most people are. They're kind of like, listen, I have my business. I just want to market it more.
Yeah.
I just want to market it more. And so that's going to be great for anyone who's kind of there already. Now, beginners courses. So all of my courses are broken down into 3 categories. So there's the advanced, intermediate, and beginners. And so beginners courses are really focused on people who are saying, you know what, I'm not really sure what I want to sell, or I think I know, but let me just test this out. Now, the beginners courses focus on things like, how to start a printable quotes business, how to sell SVGs on Etsy. And I mean, I literally walk you through the introductory stages to the end. By the end of the course, you can literally go and start your Etsy shop. And the great thing about the content is it's available for a lifetime. You will always have access to it. One of my other popular courses is the wedding course, which is called the Ultimate Wedding Course, that I just launched about a week or so ago. And it's been selling like hotcakes. And my approach to that is really just focusing on Etsy's market, picking out the products that sell well, sell the most, and that have great margins and that carry no inventory. And then you have the option of selling physical items with no inventory, or selling digital items. So that's a little bit more, it has more detail in it, but it is definitely one of my more popular courses. I also have a t-shirt course, a planner sticker course, custom pillows has been pretty popular. And then I have a course that focuses in more on mock-ups and product mock-ups as well. And I would probably add that the Etsy top 100 sellers has become very popular. And then, of course, I have another course called the Anatomy of a Successful Listing. And I have an Etsy SEO and marketing course as well. And I know I'm really just talking a lot about these courses. I'm so excited. But a lot of my courses are very short. They're to the point. You can always ask questions. I always respond within 24 hours of a comment underneath the course content. And then, of course, you can always reach out to me as a student. You are welcome to ask me as many questions as you can think of until we get you the help you need.
Okay.
And what I also wanted to actually mention was that for all of your listeners, I'm offering a 20% off coupon for all of my courses. And it will expire at the end of this year. So depending on when you listen to this, it'll probably still be available to you. And
and
so
this
you can.
year being 2018.
the year being 2018. Actually, you know what? I'm a little generous. Why don't we make this expire in 2020? And so, so that'll give everyone enough time, because this podcast is going to be huge. um, if you just use the code CONVOME, and again, this will expire in December of 2020. And if you use the code CONVO, CONVOME, it doesn't matter, lowercase or uppercase, that code for 20% off will be made available to you.
Thank you so much for doing that, Trisha. I really appreciate you giving listeners a discount on your courses. And I want to say a couple of things. First, I have taken one of Trisha's courses. I took the creating and selling printable quotes on Etsy. Actually, no, I think I took two. I think I did the SVG file shop one as well. And they were really good. What I liked was that you explained things in a way that made the assumption that the learner knew absolutely nothing and was starting from scratch. It wasn't too elementary. It was very instructional and very educational. And it was good enough that by the time I went through the first time with the printable quotes, I understood everything. Then I went through a second time and I did set up my own printable quotes Etsy shop. That's how straightforward and to the point it was. There wasn't a lot of fluff, and you went directly to how to do things, and it wasn't long and lengthy. I wasn't having to listen to the history of printable quotes on Etsy and how they've evolved over time. It was, this is how you do this. This is how you upload the file. This is what types of files you need to offer, etc., etc. And so that was really good. And in this day and age where we're so pressed for time, and we buy courses and never get around to them because they just take so long, it was refreshing to buy something that I was able to get through and feel like I had accomplished something, and the money was worth it for me. So I just want to say that too, just as a testimonial about your courses. The other thing is the wedding one you mentioned. I don't see it on your site yet. Is that part of a bundle or?
The wedding one is live. Okay. If it's not live, I can take a look, but I'll make sure it's live before the end of the day. Okay. Oh my goodness. Yeah. And
then it's exciting to hear that the social media one is coming out, because that's something we talked about. And I know there's a segment of the audience who's listening, whose shops are, they're happy with where things are with their shops, but perhaps they're more concerned about social media marketing and how to get better at it. So it's exciting for me to hear that too, because I struggle with social media. So I'm looking forward to seeing what that's all about, and and learning how to get better at that. So thank you so much for all this stuff that you're putting out. I don't know how you keep up with it, but thank you.
Well, thank you for having me. This was amazing.
Now, Trisha, if there's something we haven't talked about yet and somebody wants to reach out to you and ask you more questions, what's the best way they can do that?
I would say the best way would probably be Facebook. I know it sounds terrible. Facebook's really good. You can send me a Facebook message. I'm usually really good at replying. You can also send me an email at hello@TrishaTaylor.com. So that's Trisha with a double S, Taylor, TAYLOR.com.
Oh, just TrishaTaylor.com, not TrishaTaylorCreative.com?
Yes, I actually have both of those domains.
Okay. Good for you for grabbing both.
Yeah.
And then Facebook, is that, should we just find you your personal account, or is it a page that you want to get connected through?
Absolutely. I have a fan page, and it's Trissha Taylor Creative. Okay. And my fan page is probably better than my personal page because I'm terrible when it comes to my personal Facebook. So I'll probably see it more quickly on my fan page. So my fan page is facebook.com/Trisha with a double S, Taylor Creative, and that's it.
Okay. So I will link directly to Trisha's Facebook page, well, the Trissha Taylor Creative Facebook page, and then I'll also have her email address so that if there's anything else you want to reach out to her about, you can connect with her that way. Before I let you go, Trisha, I always like to ask 2 questions, which I forgot. One is, are there any particular tools or resources that you're using right now that you find particularly helpful? And it could be resources for selling on Etsy or just for running your own creative business. And it could be books or tools, anything that you're willing to share.
If you're running your own creative business, I would probably say the Hungry JPEG is probably a really great place to find resources. I'm growing to love them more and more every day. And as far as tools, I found a tool that I absolutely love, but my understanding is that they're very selective and it's very hard to get in. But I managed to get in. It's called Grum, Grum, and they help me schedule my Instagram posts. And so I schedule them from my computer, which is wonderful because, I just trying to send it to yourself can get a little daunting. So I use Grum on mine to manage my Instagram, which has been extremely helpful. So they do video and photos. And it's like, I kind of got into some sort of special that they had and I spent like $20 and I have a lifetime access to it, which I thought was amazing. So if they ever do that, keep an eye out for that because it's a good deal.
Oh, okay. So you just upload posts that you want to go onto Instagram and then they just release them according to when you. Oh,
exactly.
Fantastic.
So I can schedule my Instagram post. I think the website is grum.co.
Oh, okay.
Pretty much I kind of manage my social media or my Instagram that way.
Yeah.
And
okay, good to know. And then I didn't tell you beforehand that I was going to ask you about this, but we touched on it. And if none comes to mind immediately, that's okay. But do you have an Etsy shop shout out? So either a seller or a shop that you just want to give, a shout out to, perhaps somebody that you buy from or someone who has helped you along the way at some point in your journey.
Oh my goodness. Wow. Very good question. I can't think of one right out the gate. Oh my goodness, I can't think of one. That's a really good question. No. My mind is just flooded with all these shops that I like, but no.
I know sometimes it's hard to narrow down.
It is hard. I have several that I absolutely love. There's a seller out in Australia who did all of my daughter's EpiPen cases because my daughter has severe tree nut allergy, and she did these really cute little pouches for my daughter to bring to school, which was wonderful because we were having a hard time getting her to agree to wear her EpiPens because it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Fast. So she just made that wonderful. Now I cannot remember her shop name, but I can remember her face.
Okay. Let's do this.
I can't think of one. I'm so sorry.
If you can find her shop name, you can email it to me and I'll put the link to it.
Will do.
Okay.
Will do. Absolutely.
Trisha, thank you so much again for being my guest. Thank you for all the information you shared. TrishaTaylor.com. Don't forget, Trisha has 2 S's. TRI.
Sorry.
Thank you so much. Yes, TrishaTaylorCreative.com. But I thank you so much for being my guest and for spending this time with me.
Thank you so much for having me as well. This was amazing. I had a great time. We have to do this again.
Yeah. And I thank you for listening to the podcast. I will be back next week.
Thank you for listening. You can subscribe to the podcast in iTunes, and while you're there, please leave a review too. Visit convome.com to leave a comment or feedback on this episode.